welcome to another episode of my weird little podcast. Yay!
Yay.
Yeah. Today, before I get started, I did want to say something to those people who are listening. I want to apologize for missing a week last week and any weeks in the future that I miss, because I only record these when my mental health is good and my schedule allows me to do so. I'm not getting paid for this, so this is out of the kindness of my heart. So if I do skip a week, I'm so sorry. I will be back the next week. If you are wondering where I went, feel free to message me on any form of social media, ask what's up. I will try to give heads ups in the future, for hiatuses, which usually I have not been doing that. I just kind of stop, and skip a week. So I'm going to try to do 3 and then skip a week and take a break, because I need time to live a normal life, normal in huge quotes. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say to my listeners who are loyal, and we love you very much. So all right, but getting into it, today we have the wonderful Teresa back on the show. Yes.
Hey everybody.
Tuning in
Happy
from
to be back.
California.
Yeah.
And me again, Tia, I'm always here. Wouldn't that be weird to do an episode though without me here? I guess it could happen. I don't have to
Yeah.
be here. My podcast, the word my is a universal my. So, I'm not a selfish person. I could let the reins go. Maybe let like you and Pat do an episode. Maybe Roxanne will come on again. Maybe I'll have some other random person, in the future. But yeah, maybe I could do an episode and take a break and not be there. I don't know. That would mean me giving up control, and I don't know how I feel about that. Because I like to control things, and something I am coming terms with myself. I'm sure some of you understand. But anyways, you're bringing a story today. Before I divulge
Yeah.
more information about myself, you're bringing a story today, and I don't know what you're going to be talking about today. It's going to be a surprise to me, and I am excited.
No. True. I know you love my surprises with content
do
for the podcast.
actually. In real life, though, like in my normal life, I do not like
Yeah.
surprises at all. I don't like surprise plans. I don't like surprise presents. I don't.
No surprise parties?
No. I've never had like one that was really fun, and I've tried. Like every time you try to plan a surprise party, that's when everyone's busy. You
Yeah.
know. And
True.
I've planned a few, and like there's been like very few people to show up, and then it's like, what's the point of throwing the surprise party if there's like 2 people?
True. Yeah.
And I've had them thrown for me, and it was like, it's okay fun, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I like to control things, so I'd rather plan my own party, you know, or
Yeah.
I'm like in the point of my life too where I don't really like parties. Like I only have so many friends. Like I only have like maybe less than a handful of friends. Like I could count the amount of friends I have on one hand pretty quickly. Uh, you know. So I don't really think I want to
Oh,
throw a party, because it would just be like you and me and Roxana,
yeah.
and like a few other people. I guess it would just be a hangout. I don't know. If you want to throw me a surprise party, though, I will suck it up and I will enjoy it. just saying.
Well,
Yeah.
that's yeah. I don't know that I will be, but just good to know. So,
Oh, okay. Good. I appreciate that. No pressure. You don't have to.
uh, you know, Just had to see if that was something that you were a fond of or not. So
Not
yeah.
really. Yeah, no, not
Okay.
really.
No problem.
All right. So, what
Uh,
story are you bringing today to the pod?
okay. Okay. Well, I am bringing today to the pod. I think you mentioned, and I forgive me if you didn't do this yet or you were still thinking about doing it, but did you do a podcast yet on the Jersey Devil?
Oh my goodness. I was going to next week, but that's
Oh,
okay.
okay.
You can do
Oh,
it.
did I
Go for
reveal
it.
it?
No, do it
No, no,
now.
no. No, no, no. That's I'm not doing it now. I just I took my inspiration based off of that
Oh,
from
okay.
for what I'm doing tonight.
Oh,
No,
sweet.
I that's kind of my intro into what I'm doing. Yeah. Because I'm also going to be talking about a cryptid as well. So this cryptid is local to, well, not really local, I guess. Local-ish it's in the same state that I'm from, Illinois, because
Hmm.
things always come back to Illinois and Chicago for me at some point. So I decided that I would talk to everyone tonight about the Murfreesboro Mud Monster, or the Big Muddy Monster.
Ooh.
Um, and yes, it sounds pretty gross, and he kind of is, and scary too. So hopefully you'll be as intrigued as I am about this creature. But yeah, I figured, well, if you're going to talk about the Jersey Devil, I'll find a local legend that I don't really know that much about myself. So I learned quite a bit about all there is to know about this mysterious creature that lurks in the shadows in the woods, basically, and also um, because of the big muddy part, there's a river right near where this monster was seen frequently. Um, so yeah, let me just get into it.
Mm.
So Murfreesboro, I sorry to say Illinois, but I have not been to Murfreesboro. I hadn't even really heard of it. Sorry. It's in
It's
southern
okay. I
Illinois.
have not been to Illinois at all. So, there's that, you
There
know.
you go.
We'll just have
There
to
you
go
go.
together and search for the mud monster.
Yeah, well, that would be a feat. I mean, hey, I would do it, but that would be a feat if we could actually catch a glimpse of. I keep calling it him. I mean, that's interesting. I'm just thinking about that for a minute. Why, I guess we refer to Bigfoots of that kind as him usually. I mean, they're never
Yeah,
described as being like female. So,
I
right? I don't
think,
know.
well, the Jersey Devil is supposed to be a he. But
Okay.
we'll get into that when I do that
Okay.
later this
Yeah.
week. Um, but I don't know. I think it's just like some sort of inherent learned misogyny that we all kind of do, where if we don't know the gender
Yeah.
of something, we always assume it's a he, or like how people think cats are girls and dogs are boys, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's funny.
that's, you know.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess, for these purposes, if I refer to the mud monster as he, it's just for that reason that you said. It's just kind
Mm.
of more um ingrained generic branding. So anyway, so back to Murfreesboro. I'm getting on a tangent. Murfreesboro is in southern Illinois, and it is nearest to the Southern Illinois University, modern day, where Carbondale would be. I say modern day. The first sightings were in the 1970s, but I'm pretty sure Southern Illinois University was around then. But anyway, this is the southwestern region of Illinois, and it's home to the very vast Shawnee National Forest, which is a huge wooded area. and also not very populated. So it is sometimes referred to as the Devil's Kitchen because of its long history of eerie phenomena and mysterious creatures passing through.
Hmm.
Yes. Which I'm very intrigued by that as well, because, like I said, having grown up in the Chicago area, there are wooded areas, and there's definitely things that happen in those wooded areas, but definitely they're not the same wooded areas like this Shawnee National Forest area would be, where it's like kind of pure country. So I don't have that experience at all. So, um, I am interested to know what, creatures besides the mud monster might possibly be lurking around those wooded areas in the southwestern part of the state.
I feel like I've
But
heard of the Shawnee National Forest before, and definitely
hmm,
watching something about cryptids. So, you know,
okay, yeah,
maybe
yeah, there's,
there, yeah, maybe
yeah.
there's more out there. I don't know. You
I
know.
think so. I think so. There's definitely, I mean, just in doing the research for this alone, I re-encountered some of the other cryptids that I had heard of. I did talk a long time ago. I think it was on Hollywood's Haunted podcast. I gave us a little bit of information about the Thunderbird that was in more
Oh
in
yeah.
central Illinois, and then the Piesa bird, which is a legend from Alton, Illinois.
Hmm.
And that was, kind of, what was it? Like a chimera, where it had all different kinds of animal body parts, but they painted it on the side of a rock. So,
Hmm.
um, anyway, those are some of the others cryptids in the area. But let's get back to the mud monster, as I'm just going to call him, because Murfreesboro Mud Monster is a mouthful. Or I could call him the Big Muddy Monster, as he's also called. But the most sightings of the Mud Monster were in the summer of 1973 in Murfreesboro. So Murfreesboro is your typical small town in southwestern Illinois. Not very many people live there. So when anything like this happened, well, this was one of the very first big, cryptid sightings to happen. The whole town just blew up, and I'll get into that in a moment. It got national attention. So in the summer of 1973, on June 25th, the first encounter really with the mud monster, there was a couple named Randy Needham and Judy Johnson, and they were looking for a place to park and enjoy some quality alone time.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, we know about parking. That parking
yes,
is always the beginning of the horror movie,
yep,
Uh,
yep. So,
oh God, what is
they
it?
should.
The town that feared sundown or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
We know about
Yeah,
parking.
yeah,
I've
and
never parked
oh no.
before.
Well, I have, but it was not near. It wasn't in a such a remote place that I was in. I was, I mean, I'm sure they weren't thinking about it either, but you know, anyway, suffice it to say, it wasn't in that remote of an area, and the cops did come once to break up the party.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, it was pretty jolting. I was like, oh my God, is that the cops just knocked on the window? Yes,
Mhm.
it was. But
Mhm.
in retrospect, we parked in probably one of the worst places you could probably park, like in one of the strictest communities that was nearby where I grew up. So, yeah, I don't know what we were thinking, but but I have parked, and luckily it was only the cops that showed up, and not
Mhm.
the Murfreesboro Mud Monster. So I think we got off pretty easy, honestly. But Judy and Randy did not. Um, like I said, they were spending some time together, and they decided to park on a boat ramp on the Big Muddy River. Everything was peaceful until they heard a terrifying roar come from the nearby woods. And this was around midnight. So, like I said, it was pretty late, and, not too many, pretty much no one around. They then froze in silence when they heard this terrifying roar, and they saw a huge figure walk out on two legs from the shadows and slowly lumber towards them. They described the monster as being about 7 foot tall and covered with muddy, matted, whitish hair. It did not stop its shrieking cries as it moved closer toward them, and the cries intensified. They would later describe the noises as not human. And Randy Needham actually compared it to an, quote, eagle shrieking into a microphone. So,
Jeez.
yeah, that sounds pretty terrifying if you're just sitting in a car around midnight on a, you know, peaceful summer night trying to get your groove on, and then you hear this sound coming out of the woods. Yeah, that would probably do it, scare you half to death. So it definitely did for them. And they were sitting there frozen. They had no idea what to do. The monster was about 20 feet away from them at that point. And then they were finally able to start their car, leave the scene, and they decided to head straight to the Murfreesboro police station. They were not going to report it at first, according to some reports, because this is like another little part to the story. But um, apparently, Randy and Judy were more than just a couple, more than just these young lovers. They, I guess, were not technically supposed to be together, according to Judy's father. He didn't want her with this guy. So um, that's why when they went into the police station to report it, the cops, because it's a small town,
Mhm.
they knew of the risk involved when they were going to be reporting something like this. So
Mm,
they
gee.
decided, yeah, they decided, why would they go to all this trouble to expose themselves and their little romance, if they weren't completely horrified by, what had happened or what they heard. So that's why the cops believed them. It's pretty astonishing, actually, I think, because, they go to the cops right after this happens. It's after midnight in their small town. And the cops just decide to believe them, and they actually go out to investigate it, like right then and there. Um, yeah, I was just saying that I don't know if it had been in a city setting that these two had discovered, this potential monster lurking around. I don't know that they would have, the cops would have gone out and investigated as quickly. I think because it was a small town, that kind of, you know, that coupled with the fact that they knew that these people were very likely telling the truth, that they had seen something that terrified them, that they just immediately went out and investigated right then
Mhm.
and there. So 1, 2 a.m. they were over at the scene investigating. The two officers, Merrill Lindsay and Jimmy Nash, they went to go and check out the scene. They found that there were multiple gigantic footprints in the mud, and they were approximately 10 to 12 inches long and 3 inches wide. Um, and around 2 a.m., another officer and Randy Needham, who was in the couple, joined officers Lindsay and Nash. Officer Lindsay at some point left to go get a camera from the patrol car, and the others followed the footprints down the river. All of a sudden, about 100 yards away in the woods, they heard the same terrifying, otherworldly scream that Randy and Judy first heard. So all of them heard it now. And after a while, they, I'm sorry, after they first heard the scream, they booked it, of course, back for the patrol car. No one was about to go and find out what happened or where the sound was coming from. They just knew that they were terrified. So they got back into the car and they spent a while there kind of trying to figure out what to do and waiting things out. And when they got out of the car, they finally got out and they spent the remainder of the night trying to track down a distant splashing sound that they heard. Because the river was right there, and they said that it sounded like the creature probably was kind of like, walking through the water trying to get somewhere. But they never did find the source of the sound, even though, the report said that they stayed out till the early hours of the morning, like 6 a.m, searching for the creature, but they never saw anything. They never found anything. So they wrapped it up. Well, the creature would appear again just the very next night. And this was the second sighting of this mud monster. And that was on June 26th, 1973. There was
Oh,
a
wow.
4-year, yeah, like, this monster wasn't shy, about making itself known at this point. He's just stomping all around the place, I guess. So, excuse me. There was a 4-year-old boy named Christian Borough, and that night he tells his parents that next night that he was playing outside. He was catching fireflies, it was said, in a glass jar that his mom gave him. So he's just, having a fun time. And then he goes in to tell his parents that he had just seen a big white ghost in their yard. So they don't believe him. But 10 minutes later, their neighbors, Randy Creeth and Cheryl Ray, tell Christian's parents that they had seen an identical monster in their yard.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, at that point, they start to believe that Christian is telling the truth because, they're going to listen to their 4-year-old who they think is making something up, as opposed to, their neighbors who were older. And granted, I read that they were still kind of just teenagers, but they were older teenagers, like 19, 20.
Yeah.
And
Typical
so
horror
they
movie,
they
not to
decided that,
trust the kids,
right,
Yeah.
right, right. I think in one report I even read, the dad said to the kids something like, "Oh yeah, that's nice," and just
Yeah.
went about his business. But yeah, when the neighbors confirmed that they had also seen the same thing 10 minutes later, they were like, "Okay, wait a minute. Maybe he is telling the truth. Maybe there's some credibility to what he said." So when Randy and Cheryl saw the creature, they first heard something moving around in the woods near the river. And then they saw a muddy, white-haired creature staring at them with glowing pink eyes, they said.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah. And that was something that was going to pop up with various sightings. It wasn't reported in the first sighting with Randy and Judy, but other sightings would report that this creature, the mud monster, had glowing eyes. Sometimes they would be described as pink, sometimes they would be described as red, but all reports definitely said that they were glowing. Not just that they were reflecting light, but that they were actually glowing. So yeah, that sounds fairly terrifying.
Right? Yeah.
You know, um, So they also gave the same physical description for him, saying that he was about 7 feet tall. They said he had ape-like arms and that he probably weighed about 350, 400 pounds. So, yeah, a huge hulk of a beast. And it definitely sounds like, your Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Yeti, all of those. Um, so at that point, Cheryl turned on the porch light and Randy went for a closer look. And when she turned on the porch light and the creature could see that that it had been spotted, it seemed unconcerned, they said, and it turned and it went back into the woods. So I guess unlike Randy and Judy and their first sighting down at the riverbank, um, the monster seemed very aggressive at that point. But I guess for whatever reason, Cheryl and Randy, this other Randy, didn't have the same experience. So just kind of interesting. But so after, they also reported this to the police as well. And when the investigators went back out to have a look, they found a section of the woods was definitely disturbed. There were broken tree branches, crushed undergrowth, and again, huge footprints. They also said that they smelled a very strong foul odor in the area,
I
and that
feel like that's pretty common with like Bigfoot type
yeah,
creatures,
yeah.
uh like what is it, the skunk ape or something like that.
Yes, skunk ape
Yeah.
is from Florida, I believe.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
has like a smell too to
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yes. Yeah.
So
It's another common theme. Yeah, you're right. Exactly. And they also noticed that they saw these black slime tracks, basically.
ew.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the smell was going to be a very big thing with this Murfreesboro mud monster because like you said with the skunk ape, people notice the distinct smell and talk about that if they have encounters. So it's the same thing with the mud monster. They said that the smell was just awful. Like one person described it like, like sewage smell, like just like rotten, like garbage, So um yeah, it had to be pretty bad. Um, so yeah, these investigators, when they discovered that area of the woods that Cheryl and Randy saw the mud monster coming from, they also noticed the very strong smell. Um, so there was going to be at least one more significant sighting, and that was on July 4th, 1973. So, not that long after these initial two sightings happened. And that encounter was at a traveling carnival, of all things. And it was set up for, the time around the 4th of July to celebrate the holiday. And when the first sighting happened on July 4th, it was the carnival workers that said they saw the mud monster just looking like with a very like kind of curious look just at some Shetland ponies that were used in the carnival. Yeah. And the ponies were, used to give kids rides, like
Yeah.
in a merry-go-round type thing, like over and over. Um, and back then, I'm sure it was even way more common to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, they said that when they saw the mud monster, that yeah, it was just kind of looking curiously at the ponies, but it wasn't like, approaching them or touching them or anything like that. It
Mhm.
just was like looking at them in curiosity. So who knows what that was for. But they told their boss, of course. But the carnival owner was afraid that if he reported this strange sighting to the police and the word got out, that that was going to turn customers away. from
Mm.
the carnival. So he decided not to report it until July 7th, on 3 days later. Um, so he said that from what he noticed that the ponies had been straining to break free from the trees they'd been tied up to for the night. And this was, like again, all of these things happen kind of in the dead of night, if you will, as most creepy things happen. Um, Happened around like 2 in the morning that he saw these ponies that were like, visibly frightened and trying to get free from the trees. So when he went to go investigate, he said that he came face to face with the Murfreesboro Mud Monster. And he gave a very similar description to the descriptions that were already given, 7 foot tall, about 350 to 400 pounds. But in his description, he said that the mud monster had like a light brown fur. And most of the other ones said they had a whitish fur that was matted with the mud from the Big Muddy River. But, either way, it's obviously probably the mud monster.
Mm.
Different people have different sightings and depictions, but the sightings would continue and they would make huge headlines in the news, even globally. So, like I said, when I started talking about this, yeah, this little town of Murfreesboro, Illinois, in the early 70s would literally get put on the map globally by getting into the news, the national news. And I thought it was astounding that even the New York Times, they were interested in the story. And they sent somebody down to Murfreesboro to investigate, and they wrote an article about it. You can read the article online, just, search for it. But it was very interesting. I was thinking to myself, wow, the New York Times covered an actual cryptid sighting,
Yeah.
in the early
Wow.
70s in a
Yeah.
small town in Illinois.
Yeah.
Like that made the New York Times. Like to
Yeah.
me, that's pretty astounding.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, there was a lot of kind of notoriety, I guess, that was brought to the town. I don't know if everyone enjoyed it, but they seem to, and I'll get into that in a minute. Um, but after the sightings in 1973 in that initial summer, there were other sightings that would occur. And they even occurred all the way into the late 80s, like 1988, I believe, was the last recorded sighting of the mud monster. Um, and the mud monster um, has not been seen or really reappeared since. But, there's a few theories behind that. One is that perhaps because of all the attention that the town received with, the news stories and reporters and, everything else happening, that would be even more of a reason for the mud monster to not want to appear.
Mm.
Um, but maybe it was just passing through on its way to somewhere else. Or it could, now that we're talking about, obviously there's different states, there's more than just the skunk ape. I forget some of the other names right now off the top of my head, but there's definitely stories out of Ohio and some other parts of the East Coast where, and definitely Florida with the skunk ape. And I think there might be at least another Bigfoot variant of some kind.
Mm.
But yeah, there's all these different variants that are spotted. And who's to say it could possibly be, the same creature just
Oh
passing
yeah.
through. So that's an idea. That's a
He
theory
gets
of
around.
yeah,
They
he
get
gets
around.
around. He
Yeah.
gets around the good old United States.
Mm.
So that could be a reason why he hasn't been seen in Murfreesboro since the late 80s. But yeah, the sightings, like I said, after 1973, they were few and far between. There was nothing as prolific or as in close proximity as the summer of 1973. So I guess there was just something special about that year. Um, so, is the Murfreesboro Mud Monster a type of Bigfoot? Is the Murfreesboro Mud Monster still out there? Sir involved in the case said about is the mud monster still out there, that a lot of things in life are unexplained. And this is another one. We don't know what the creature is, but we do believe what these people saw was real. And there was another quote that I wanted to share with you. Oh, yeah. So this was in 2003. This was on the 30th anniversary of the sightings. And the formed police chief, Ron Manwaring, he was interviewed by Weird Illinois, which is where I got most of my source material from about this story. But he was interviewed about every detail about what he remembered about this case. And he said, they were absolutely terrified. I'm convinced that they saw something that night. I can't tell you what it was that they saw, whether it was a bear or something else, but something was definitely there. Um, and then Randy Needham, who was, the guy from the original couple in the car, he said to Weird Illinois, it would be naive for us to think that we know everything that's out there. I couldn't agree with you more, Randy. um, he admitted also that he never goes into the woods at night anymore. Yeah, I can imagine why.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't either. Um, so, um, and then I thought this was really interesting. When this case, broke and nationwide and then globally, and everyone was kind of weighing in about it. Um, there was this guy named Lauren Coleman, and he is a famed cryptozoologist. And he investigated these sightings in 1973, and he concluded himself that the Murfreesboro mud monster was a Bigfoot type creature. And he said, there's something very unique about this Eastern Midwestern Bigfoot. From the reports from the mud monster, it seemed to frighten people the way it didn't in the West. I thought that was interesting because, yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, you hear so many different stories about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, most of the reports aren't from different regions, aren't that this monster is aggressive. But in these stories, especially from here in Illinois, Murfreesboro, yeah, the monster definitely did seem aggressive. He did seem like, I'm not sure if he wanted to harm people, but if he didn't want to harm people, he definitely wanted to scare people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting. But yeah, that cryptozoologist thought that he was definitely a variant of Bigfoot, the mud monster. So it's pretty interesting to just to think about that even, like how many, like we're just saying, like how many different types of names for Bigfoot are out there in different areas in the United States and then globally around the world. There's also, like you said, Bigfoot gets around. So, it's got to be tired with all that traveling. But
Oh yeah.
I don't know. He's
Good
a world
thing
class.
good thing they have big feet.
I guess so, it's just so weird, but also just so cool. Um, and like I said, this monster is from Illinois. I didn't even know, honestly, that Illinois had its own Bigfoot story. So, um, the kind of the last thing I think I want to leave us with is that So, like I was saying, when Murfreesboro got national attention in the world headlines of having this, you know, terrifying monster that was lurking around town and frightening people half to death, um, they love this monster in retrospect. I mean, there's been, of course, books written, any number of books written about not just the mud monster itself, but also other, local cryptids from the area. But there have been documentaries. A recent one was made. And but Murfreesboro, like any good small town, I guess, they definitely hold on to um, the legend of the mud monster as one of their draws, actually. They hold an annual Big Muddy Monster Festival.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah. And it's usually involving beer, which is good. I mean, I
Mhm.
love beer. A
Yeah.
lot of people do. But yeah, they're supposedly they have some very good craft brews there. So that might be fun sometime to go to. But this year is no different. I was just talking about 2003, how that was the 30th anniversary.
Mhm.
Well, to make us all feel really old right now, it's 2023 today. And now I just read that they are excited this year because it is the 50th celebration
Wow.
of the first sighting. So,
Wow.
yeah. So they're having a big Muddy Monster Festival, probably really soon because,
Yeah.
the end of June is, the end of the month. So, yeah, I was reading, what they're going to have there. It's your typical festival stuff. But they're also going to have, apparently, you will be able to see the only footprint casting left from one of the first sightings back in 1973. So it's just wild, the town of Murfreesboro said that this is the, the story with the mud monster and everything that happened. Excuse me. It's one of only two cases in the town that's never been solved. Um, and like I said, going back to all the police attention and I mean, you can go if you Google Murfreesboro Mud Monster or Big Muddy Monster, one of the first sites that will pop up is from the town itself. And you can actually click on a link to look at all of the files from the case. And it's just staggering to see that the police took, all this evidence into account and very seriously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess being interested in these kinds of things, it shouldn't blow my mind in such a way, but I think it just kind of does because it makes me feel like, wow, they're really taking this seriously, like they really believed people. Like, which is, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of cool in a way, I guess. you know, that they took it so seriously. Because they still have the files and they're still like, well, we're hoping to crack the case someday, but we don't know if we ever will. So, I mean, I guess they probably do similar things in different cities around the USA that this stuff has been reported, but
Oh yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. To me, it was just, I mean, they have to, right? If people are making official reports and stuff like that, even if they don't kind of believe it, they're probably at least taking down the initial report. But yeah, I think everybody in that town that had that encounter in some way, um, they definitely believed what they saw.
Mm.
And um, they, like I said, the town now it's kind of like a a local legend mascot, I guess, if you will, because when they have that festival, they have somebody dress up like the big muddy monster. And, like they painted a mural on one of the prominent walls in the town and everything. And in the mural, there's a picture of the big muddy monster. So, um, yeah, this is Murfreesboro, Illinois' very own Bigfoot. So, yeah, I never knew in Illinois that Bigfoot was spotted, but he was. So, um, yeah, I just thought that was very cool. And yeah, since we're on cryptids and I hadn't known much about that one, I wanted to find out more. So, yeah, it's
Yeah, I never heard of that before either. Yeah,
yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah, I just
crazy.
think it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's like there's so many different types of Bigfoot. I mean, I guess that does happen with a lot of cryptids. They kind of get named different things depending on where they're spotted
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like at first when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, well, you just stay out of the woods at night, right? But I mean, maybe you just can't avoid it sometimes.
yeah. I
It's
I am terrified when, maybe in the future, if ever I have an encounter with some creature I can't explain, I think that would terrify me. I do avoid the woods,
yeah,
so I'm not exactly going out cryptid hunting. Although we should at some point, we should go.
I know.
We've been ghost hunting a few times, but
Yes.
we should definitely go cryptid hunting at some point.
I think yeah, I think
Yeah.
that would be cool. I mean, there's so much, I mean, geez, just based on the general knowledge alone that's like coming to the top of my head right now, there's
Mhm.
so many different creatures that have been reported across the United States alone that you could just do a state by state tour of different cryptids, and I don't think you would run out of any, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's
that's how
true.
that's how many there are. Um, that would be cool if we could do some sort of cryptid tour. Anyone want to sponsor us on that?
Road trip,
Cryptid tour?
cryptid road trip.
Yeah. That would be awesome. But then yeah, I would probably also be scared at the same time, but it would be worth
Yeah.
it.
I
So,
feel like I would buy a lot of kitschy souvenirs, you
right?
know.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Like, and look at Bigfoot alone. I mean, geez, I wish, hopefully, well, he probably doesn't care about money, I'm sure, but he should get a cut of these profits
Oh yeah.
because
You should get some
people are
royalties.
making serious bucks off of Bigfoot
Oh
in so
yeah.
many ways.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you for bringing that
Yeah.
story. That was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. I'd never heard of
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Uh, the glowing eyes thing, I think that's the scariest part of it.
Oh
I
my
kept
God.
looking
Yeah.
over at my window too, because it's like pitch black into my backyard. Uh, and like, I don't know, until like today, right now, I noticed that, uh, yeah, that's pretty freaky. Um, and I'm here in my room by myself. I mean, there are other people in the house, but I'm in my room by myself right now. So
Yeah.
there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but thank you for bringing that story. I
Of
hope to
course.
do more cryptid stories on this podcast because not really something we covered on Hollywood's Haunted,
Yeah.
for obvious reasons. I think we did talk maybe once or twice, about a cryptid. I can't really
Yeah.
remember any, but it
Hmm.
all starts to blur together with how much we talked a lot about a lot of things. Um,
That's true.
but I don't think we focused
True.
on
Yeah.
cryptids. I'd like to do more on cryptids, more on extraterrestrials. UFOs were just sighted over Las Vegas recently. So
Really?
I have not
Wow.
watched. My friend was like, I think your family's coming to pick you up. And I'm like, no, it's just some friends coming to visit. Um, yeah, because I don't know. I always joke that I'm an alien because my hair is super
Yeah.
green and yeah, you know. Little
Well,
extraterrestrial here from Area 51, you know. Um,
well, yeah.
but yeah, I'm gonna watch those videos not tonight. Um, in the daylight hours, I will watch those videos, and next podcast I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then I'll tell you about it too, of course.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, but that's definitely not the first time. It was like earlier this year there was a UFO sighting over the Sapphire Club, which is a strip club uh
Oh.
off of
Oh.
Industrial. But like the security guards that were standing outside of the club saw it, and like several people driving by the Sapphire Club saw it as well. It was like hovering over one of their big signs. They have like this huge, there are like three main strip clubs like in that area, and each one has this like huge sign outside. And it's like this big, like almost a billboard size sign on this huge pylon. But you could see the red lights above it, and the sign is blue. I don't know.
God.
Yeah, look it up. Not tonight, in the daytime.
Yeah.
It's pretty
I
freaky.
know.
So, but
Yeah.
there's a couple government bases, or one government base near here. Area 51 is near here. It's definitely
Mhm.
a UFO because it's unidentified, but it doesn't mean it's extraterrestrial. So,
True.
there's
True.
that. You know, uh,
Yeah.
the Nevada Proving Ground is near here. So who knows what's going on? They don't tell
Who
me.
does know?
Yeah.
Who does
Yeah.
know? It's like Randy Needham said in the Mudman story. It'd be naive of us to think that there are things out there that, we don't know everything.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
exactly.
I
But yeah.
agree.
But thank you all to my listeners for
Yeah.
listening to this episode as well. Please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about my weird little podcast. If you want more of these, please spread the word. You can follow me. I'm on TikTok at my weird little podcast, where I make little TikToks talking about the outfits that I wear and whatever. If you want different sort of content, through social media, let me know. Like, I'm willing to make more content in other forms. I'm on Instagram at Tia is the coolest. You can find me on Facebook. You can find my weird little podcast on Facebook. Hollywood's Haunted is on Facebook as well. So yeah. Email us at not Hollywood's Haunted. Email us at my weird little podcast at gmail.com, or HH the podcast at gmail.com, I think was the other one. Either one, you know where to find me. I hope you all have a great rest of your Pride Month, which it is.
Yay. Happy
Yeah.
Pride.
Yay.
Yay.
And I hope you all stay spooky. Ooh.
Woo.